felt like it went forever.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
We're talking about Napoleon.
You know that.
You know him.
Is it Napoleon?
You know him. You
I
love him.
literally wrote Napoleon on every single time I wrote Napoleon.
Napoleon.
My Napoleon has an
Leon.
A-N at the end of his name, not an O-N. That's my guy.
Napoleon.
Napoleon Dynamite.
Alright, publish. Circle this around. We still have to make an intro for the Remember This podcast.
What did we do? What did we do on the
Like-
last episode? I haven't even listened to it.
Well, not like while we're recording, but for like just the podcast, like an intro and a credits.
What did
There's nothing. We
You
haven't
ju-
recorded it yet. It's just the episode.
it just
For example,
like it just says, "Hello, this is Marin." There's no intro or outro. Cool.
yeah.
We're professional
I was
podcasters.
I was supposed to write a script for that, so we recorded those today, but I was busy.
We've got the
It's fine.
last week of December to do that kind of stuff.
We simply could redo all our stuff that day.
Yep, we could.
Anyway,
We do this as a job.
we do this.
Yeah.
It's just us.
It literally is.
Give us some
Yeah,
credit.
I do. I give you all the credit.
Napoleon.
Napoleon.
2 people are here. Hi, Victoria. I miss Cherish's Best Life Ever. Well, it's not my fault she double scheduled.
She did. She went on and did a tea post.
She missed our Best Harry Potter Live ever. Actually, she's here. Anyway. We need to add a Remember This to
Oh yeah,
That's fine.
it's the same. No, it's not.
No.
There's no chapter. There's just a whole movie.
Actually.
Okay. Okay. I feel the same way as I did when we started Bring It On. I don't know how to start. I don't know what to do. It's the same. Why am I nervous?
I'm trying to get those sniffles out.
Oh my gosh. Mark has cried so much in the past few weeks that he just can't breathe anymore at all. He's just one big congest.
Yeah.
Poor guy. Love him. Should we just start?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm just going to start.
Do it.
You want to do it?
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
It's Emily.
It's Marin.
And this is
Remember This?
A podcast where we talk about, whatever.
Whatever we want. This month we are joyfully, gratefully, happily discussing one of the masterpieces of modern filmmaking.
Napoleon Dynamite,
You
of
heard
course.
me. You heard me. I will never take back that statement. I mean it with every fiber of my being, as Edward Cullen says. Napoleon Dynamite's one of the greatest movies ever made.
It's true.
Yeah, well, it truly is, and it's not just because like it's funny and I relate to it and I see like my funny little town in it, but like no, it truly is a really well-made film. I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, I want to like preface this episode by saying there's absolutely no way that we can be funnier than the movie. So we're not even going to try.
No.
There's absolutely no way to out-humor this movie. It's simply impossible. So we're just going to recap the whole thing for you. What?
Yeah, we're going to tell you what happens in this movie so that if you're one of those people like my husband, Mark, him, who has watched the movie, but only watched it like laying on a couch surrounded by like 10 little kids running around playing and other people doing things and having Christmas parties. He didn't get the full experience, and so he doesn't appreciate the movie. He doesn't like the movie. So this is for people like Mark. Also for people who really do enjoy the movie, as we do. We watched it last night with some of our patrons, some of whom had never actually seen it before, and I'm making a huge assumption here that I think they liked it.
I think they did.
I saw a lot of laughter and a lot of enjoyment, so we are here for it.
Yes. Do you remember your first Napoleon watch?
Yes. So here's the story behind my first Napoleon watch. My friends Anthony and Brian, who I used to hang out with constantly, loved Napoleon. And they talked about it all the time, and they would like quote it, and it was like this funny little inside joke. And every time I'd be like, I don't get it, I don't understand your joke, and it doesn't seem like it's funny. But they were like, no, trust me, it's funny. So one day I was at my mother-in-law's of all places, and one of, I think it was my brother-in-law John, was like, oh, I got Napoleon Dynamite, and I was like, cool, I've never seen it, let's watch it. And we watched it, and it exceeded my expectations. I could not believe what was happening on the screen in front of me. I laughed so hard, and the whole time my mother-in-law literally just shook her head and was like, I don't get it. The whole time. She must have said it 400 times in an hour and a half. I don't get it. And I laughed so hard at that. Like I just enjoyed every moment of that watching, where I was just like, I get it. I think it's hilarious. John probably doesn't really get it, but is still laughing along with me because he finds it enjoyable. She did not get it at all. I thought that was so funny and cute of her to not get it. What about you?
So there I was in 6th grade. I was 13 years old. And the teachers during a music class one day come in and say that we are going to do something really fun for our 6th grade graduation. And we're like, okay, so far all we know that what you guys think is really fun is learning like 2 ukulele songs. So, we weren't so sure about it. And then they told us that we were going to have a Napoleon Dynamite themed graduation party. And we were like, all right, sounds cool. And they're like, we'll eat tots. It'll be a good time. So we're like, yeah. And then they're like, also, we're going to learn the sign language song and also the Napoleon Dynamite dance. And so we watched the whole movie. And then over the course of literally the whole year, I swear, like every other week, we watched that dance scene 5 times. And they taught all us 6th graders how to do the dance. And when I say they taught, I mean one of my fellow classmates, Anna Roundy, who learned the dance by herself, taught the rest of us how to do it.
I don't know Anna, but I wish I did. That's awesome. Oh my gosh, I've always been jealous of kids who could watch a dance and learn it and then teach it to everybody else.
Yeah, she was great.
Oh, beautiful.
Yep.
I'm going to look her up on Instagram. I'm going to stalk her a little bit. That sounds amazing.
Super fun.
I wish I had seen it. I don't know why I didn't or what I was doing, but man, what I wouldn't give to use that Napoleon Dynamite time machine and go back to 2004 and watch you and Matthew Brown do that dance.
Here's the thing is we're from Utah and there's a lot of, Mormon families around and they love to like film things. I am almost certain that if I sent out a message to all of my fellow 6th grade classmates, some of their moms must have it recorded on VHS somewhere.
Yeah, undoubtedly it exists.
It's definitely out there still.
100%. It exists. Like, I wonder if Heidi's mom has a copy.
She just might.
Okay, I'm going to call her later today.
Give Anne a call.
Speaking of, you said something so funny a minute ago. Tots. Speaking of tots,
yeah,
let's get into this movie.
All right.
So I want you guys to know that even from the very first beginning of credits of this movie, iconic. All right. So I'm just gonna quickly. I didn't write down all the names of the people in the credits. I'm just gonna give you a little like rundown of how these credits roll out. First shot is a red shag carpet, and onto that red shag carpet, we get a plate with tater tots and ketchup. Next, white rug, burrito, disgusting rice next to it. Then, blue, what looks like maybe a bathroom mat. I don't know. This plate literally has pre-deviled eggs on it.
They're not deviled yet.
No, it's a boiled egg cut in half. It's a pre-deviled egg. This is disgusting. Next, we've got red shag carpet again. We pull out a wallet. Out of this wallet comes a card that says it's a business card, you guys, and it says UFO abduction insurance card. He has that. The next thing he pulls out from his wallet is his high school identification card. His picture on it. It's beautiful. It's a valid. It says valid on it. He checks it. The next thing we get is this really cool like carpet that looks like green grass. Onto that carpet, a plate of a very rare, very bloody steak with what looks like mayo on it. Really gross. Next, classroom carpet looking thing. Plate of nachos. Beautiful, iconic. Next, green tile. It's cafeteria tile? I don't know. On that, we've got a tray. On this tray, you guys, this is your lunch. Corn dog, 3 slices of canned peaches, a tiny scoop of peas, and the smallest amount of ketchup up in the corner. It's disgusting. Yellow table, peanut butter and jelly, and a banana on a paper bag. Next, we get a wooden classroom table. In comes a silver gum wrapper folded ninja star. Really good. That's going to put somebody's eye out. You flick that across the classroom. Next thing, we've got a fancy blue tablecloth. In comes some library books. First book is called Bigfoot and Me. We know that because he opens it up and pulls out the due date card. Okay, puts that away. Next book is literally called Science and Centaurs. These are Napoleon's reference books for life, obviously. Next thing we have is a brown shag carpet. On comes a box of lemon drops. That goes away. In comes a tube of green chapstick. Iconic. Next, we have that blue bath mat again. On to that, we see Napoleon's beautiful drawing of his self. Maybe?
Yeah, definitely.
It's a barbarian. It's a He-Man looking barbarian with a banner. After that, we have an orange rug. It is a large pile. It's a loop pile rug. Looks so comfy. And we see a drawing of nobody else but Deb as a centaur. It's Deb. She's got a high ponytail. It's flowing in the wind. There's an eagle coming at her, large talons. She's a centaur, you guys. All right, next. I don't know what this is. I just put question marks and I put game things. If anybody out there can tell me what these little metallic looking, maybe it has a screen on it. I don't know. We paused. We could not tell what it was. Next, we have the staff room carpet of the school. On the staff room carpet is that same thing with the game things. I don't know what it is. Next, we have the gym tile, obviously. On that is a protractor, a pink eraser, and 3 yellow pencils that have carved words into them, which if you didn't carve words into your wooden pencil in the 90s, I don't even know what you were doing. And then lastly, we have that blue bath mat again, and onto it, everybody's favorite meal, a burger and fries. Already, I'm a page and a half into my notes. Emily, would you like to take it from here?
Yes. Okay. This movie, iconic, starts out in front of the Dynamite house. Napoleon is standing at the end of the sidewalk and he's waiting for the bus. And as he waits for the bus, we get the first verbal word of the movie. And by word, I mean sigh. A deep sigh from Napoleon.
Iconic. There's nothing like this beautifully symmetric shot. He's right in the middle, house behind him, and he just
And if you don't immediately just relate to Napoleon here, I don't know who you are, because obviously the bus comes, he gets in, he walks past all of these like 5 to 8-year-olds to the very back of the bus. He's like on the elementary school bus, I'm almost certain.
No, for sure, 100%. But here's the thing, like, he's got a strapper keeper. He's, obviously, you're like, this kid lives in the middle of nowhere. He's a poor kid. He's, like, struggling. He's the oldest kid on the bus by many, many years.
Many.
He's the only kid his age who doesn't either have a bike or a car, or he doesn't have transportation to school, so he still has to take the bus.
Do you think Grandma called the school district and she's like, I need the bus to come to my house to pick up my grandson Napoleon because I got to work a shift at wherever I work?
Yeah, absolutely. She made these arrangements at the beginning of the year. She was like, I took in these kids. I can't bring them to school every day. I'm doing my best. I already raised their parent. I cannot. I mean, it's so funny. I would love to know the story behind them living with Grandma.
Yes. So he sits down and this kid is sitting next to him. And you can tell that this is like a normal thing that happens because the kid's like, what are you going to do today, Napoleon? And Napoleon's like, whatever I feel like. Gosh. I
love that the kid has an expectation. He knows Napoleon is going to sit down and do something.
What is it?
He doesn't care what it is. It's like in The Incredibles, where Mr. Incredible gets home and he's like, "What do you want, kid? What are you looking for?" And the kid goes, "I don't know, something amazing, I guess." That's how I feel about this kid. He just knows Napoleon's going to do something.
Absolutely. So he opens his Trapper Keeper, and inside is, I'm sorry, I'm not from this time era. I'm sure this toy is something iconic that most people recognize. I don't. It's this like dude, toy-sized dude, and Napoleon pulls it out and he starts unwinding this string that's been wrapped around it. And he unwinds and unwinds and unwinds, and then he goes to the window and he pulls the window down. And he just takes this toy and he chucks it out the window and holds onto the screen. And then we cut to a shot of just this toy like bouncing on the ground behind the bus on the way to school.
I just have no other thing to say but like the most drawn out why I've ever said of why is this happening?
I mean, Napoleon is a kid who he loves to draw and he makes his own characters. He has his own worlds. And you know that he's like trying a new scene for a new drawing. And he's like, you know, there's this main character guy and he's on some adventure where he has to hold on to a rope because whatever's happening. But Napoleon's just like living out his next drawing like the best way that he can.
You're right. I hadn't considered that. You're 100% right. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So we get to school and Napoleon is in class.
So what we see is he's drawing this epic scene of a unicorn and an alicorn. I don't know if you guys have ever watched My Little Pony, but an alicorn is a combined Pegasus unicorn horse. Okay, so it's not just a Pegasus, it's not just a unicorn, it's an alicorn. And he's got the unicorn there, he's got the alicorn up in the sky. There's this whole thing happening. And then his teacher is like, Napoleon, your current event, everyone. Listen to what he stands up. He pushes away his paper. We've got our title, which is literally a desk, and somebody has taken a dagger and scratched the name Napoleon Dynamite into this desk. It's like it takes up half the desk, and it's in script. It's beautiful. He stands up and he walks to the front of the class. And he literally starts giving this, like, I don't know if he rehearsed this speech, but it is very good. He starts talking about how the Chinese government tried to blow up the Loch Ness Monster, but the Scottish wizards luckily cast a spell to protect our underwater ally.
Well, the most important detail that I think we're missing here is he calls her Nessie.
Yes, Nessie, mm-hmm. Which is obviously Edward and Bella Collins' daughter's name.
Good Twilight reference, Napoleon.
So that's his current event for social studies.
The kids
in the class are like snorting and giggling, and I'm like, Napoleon, this is the correct cryptid current event to be telling everybody. Mm-hmm. Very important that the Scottish wizards cast a spell to protect our underwater ally.
Preston High School does not deserve Napoleon.
None of us do. He's too pure for this world.
So Napoleon goes to gym class and it's outside and literally everyone else is like playing basketball together, doing like group activities, and Napoleon is at the tetherball playing it by himself. He just punches it, kicks it,
He kicks it.
as one does. And then we cut to the locker room where there's these three kids sitting on one side of the bench, Napoleon sitting opposite, and they're like, Napoleon, is it true that you that you hunted wolverines this summer?
These guys, okay, obviously these three dudes in the gym class are very cool. They're like the cool guys. They're totally like blonde and tan and jocks and very cool. And they're like, let's do this to Napoleon. You know, they're like, we're going to talk to him like we're actually friends with him. Oh my gosh, it's so good.
It's so funny. And Napoleon's like, well, yeah, one of them was attacking my cousin. What the heck was I supposed to do?
And they're like, well, what did you use?
A bow staff?
A bow staff.
Are you absolutely kidding me?
And then didn't they ask him if he had a gun?
I don't know. Did they ask if he had a gun?
Oh yeah, I had my 12 gauge, of course.
Oh my gosh. And then, of course, this causes a little bit of a bully session.
So, okay. I think that I neglected to describe to everybody out there, our dear listeners, what Napoleon looks like.
Yes, give us the rundown.
Napoleon is not a small kid. He's big. He's probably, I would say, 6 feet tall.
At least.
He probably weighs 190 to 200 pounds. He's big. He's not fat he looks buff.
Yeah.
Like he's got thick legs and like a nice butt. I'm sorry to say it. John Heater has a nice butt.
He wears the tightest pants.
He wears a jean in a nice way. He's not good looking. He's like the nerdiest guy you can imagine. He's got a perm. I don't know if it's a perm. I think it's a perm. I think Napoleon got a perm. I don't think Napoleon has naturally curly hair. I think Napoleon got a perm. That's my headcanon about Napoleon. He's got his hair is about 3 inches tall, curly. He's got these big lips that poke out when he talks. He's got kind of big front teeth. He's got big, huge glasses. But despite him looking like literally the nerdiest person in the world, he's big.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is important because I'm going to tell you what happens next. This bully that we meet, and we never get his name, but he bullies every single nerd in the school. He's in the hallway, and he's got Napoleon, who's taller than him, and probably as heavy as him, in a headlock, and he's torturing Napoleon. He's going up and down, and he's not giving him a noogie, but all he would have to do is add his knuckles in there. And he's like, his head is going up and down in a headlock. And Napoleon is just taking it. Napoleon's a big boy. He could take this bully, but he doesn't. He just takes the bullying because that's the person he is. He's a nerd and he's been bullied his whole life. He probably doesn't even realize how big he is.
Yeah.
Am I right?
I agree.
Okay, so he's getting attacked by a bully. And then after it's done. They don't show it being done, but after it's done, he's kind of disheveled and he just like dejectedly walks to the office and he's like, it's the kind of office where they just have like a half door and the secretary sits behind the half door and he's like doing a crossword or whatever. And he's like, I don't feel very good. I need to call home. And she's like, what? Why? Obviously he's been there a few times. I like this secretary. She is bedazzled with flair. Mm-hmm. And she's got like 10 pins on her shirt. And one of them says, I heart PBS. Solid. So she's like, fine, here, call home. And he calls home and Kip doesn't say hello. Kip answers the phone and goes, hi. Was Kip expecting a call from somebody else?
Maybe he was.
Okay, so Kip is Napoleon's big brother, and he answers the phone saying, hi. And Napoleon's like, go get Grandma? And Kip is like, oh, I'm super busy. And they show Kip, and he's standing in the kitchen, and he has a plate about the size of like a serving tray, and it's completely covered in chips, like those circle tortilla chips that you get from the store. And behind it is a block of cheese. And I mean, this block of cheese is probably a foot long and 4 inches tall. And so he's like, I'm busy, and Grandma's busy, and he's just making nachos, so he can't go get her. And Kip is like, why can't you just talk to the nurse? And Napoleon's like, oh, she doesn't know anything. And so Kip is like, oh, I can't. And they keep going back to Kip. And every time they go back to him, he's got something else going on with these nachos. And finally, the last time they go back to Kip, he has shredded the entire block of cheese and dumped it on top of the nachos. It is a pile of nachos.
It's literally like a foot of shredded cheese on top of the chips.
It looks so good.
I would eat.
It looks so, so good. And then he's like, so Napoleon is like, oh, can you just bring me my chapstick and bring me my chapstick? And Kip has the gall to say, can't you just use the nurse's chapstick? At which point I have to fast forward, because I'm like, whatever happens after this, I'm going to throw up. And of course, Napoleon is like, no, I'm not going to use the nurse's chapstick, idiot. And Kip's like, see ya. Napoleon goes, idiot, and hangs up. And he walks away, and then comes across the principal being absolutely racist.
Yes.
And bullying the new kid, who is Pedro. Pedro is adorable. He's the opposite of Napoleon. He's short, he's small, he's brown, he's got a mustache. Mm-hmm. He actually looks very cool to me. I mean, he's obviously a nerd, but when I look at that guy, I'm like, I want to see what he's doing. The principal is like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, literally, like, yelling at this kid who speaks English.
Yeah,
perfectly. And Spanish. Okay, he's definitely smarter than you, Mr. Principal. And Napoleon intervenes because he's a wonderful human, and he takes Pedro to his locker, and he brags the whole time about how many gangs they have at the school. It's a buttload. They have a buttload of gangs.
Yes.
And then he's like, do you have a bike?
And Pedro's like, yeah, I have a sledgehammer. I'm just going to assume that was like super cool, because Napoleon knows what that means. And so that we're outside at the bike rack, and Napoleon's looking at the bike, and he's like, this bike has shocks, pegs, lucky. And then he's like, Pedro, have you taken off any sweet jumps? So we're outside Pedro's house. It's like the same framed, all the like outside shots of a house are like from the exact same standpoint. So you see the entire house, a little bit of the yard, and the entire sidewalk right across the front. And these two have set up a little ramp on the sidewalk right in front of the front door. And we see Napoleon standing back, and in comes Pedro, and he goes off the jump, and Napoleon's like, wow, you got like 3 feet of air, even though he absolutely got no feet of air off of it.
Barely an inch of air, no feet.
And I don't know Pedro's last name. I'm sure they say it. I just don't remember. But Sanchez. On their porch, they have like 3 feet tall statues of Mary and of Jesus.
Protecting. They're guarding the house.
They're guarding it.
They are.
It's the cutest thing I've ever seen. It's a so super cute house.
It's so cute.
So now and also Napoleon, through his hair in the sunlight, you can see just the tiniest strand of a spider web blowing in the breeze.
It's perfect filmmaking.
Because Napoleon's so tall, he like dusts the hallways as he walks through school. Yes. He catches the cobwebs.
Oh, he's so cute.
So then it is Napoleon's turn to ride the bike. And so Pedro is standing there watching Napoleon. And he comes in, same speed as Pedro, goes up the ramp, but then it breaks beneath him, groin to bicycle seat, and he just starts groaning.
It's a perfect reminder of how he has no idea how big he is.
Yes, and Pedro's just standing there watching him. And then finally Napoleon just goes, dang it.
Pedro doesn't move the entire time. No. He doesn't go to help. Back at the house. Kip,
man.
He's eating his nachos. I don't know how he's not in the bathroom. Somehow he has not had to go to the bathroom yet. He is on the computer, and he is, while he's typing, speaking this love poem that he's typing to whomever he's talking to in the chat room. It is terrible, but literally the sweetest thing I've ever heard. It's just love poetry. Grandma walks in and innocently asks Napoleon how his school was, and Napoleon straight up in her face goes, "Worst day of my life. What do you think?" Perfect Napoleon. He cannot just be like, bad. No, worst day of my life. What do you think? Gosh. Okay, imagine having to raise these children. At one point, and I'm not going to spoil this, but there is a little bit of like, we might know how old Kip is. He's old. Napoleon's like a junior. Imagine being grandma. I already said this. She already raised the parent of these children, who then raised them to be the way they are somehow. And now she has to raise them. I don't know why. It's like so sad because Grandma seems really cool.
She's literally so cool.
So cool. Grandma takes a casserole out of the fridge, I think, and she checks it on the counter and she's like, "Napoleon, go give that to Tina." And he's like, "Kip hasn't done anything today." And Kip is like, "Don't be jealous because I've been chatting with hot babes all day, Napoleon." And Grandma is like, "Oh my gosh, I'm leaving for the night. I'm going to go with your aunt somewhere. Don't worry, there's going to be steak delivered and you can make yourself a freaking quesadilla." And Napoleon is mad at Kip. So Grandma leaves and Napoleon and Kip have this fight. Like, Napoleon is super pissed at Kip, and Kip is like, "Why don't you come down here and hit me? I dare you." And Napoleon is like, "What?" And so he goes down there, and Kip stands up, and he's like a foot shorter than Napoleon. And he's like, "Come get me, come get me." And they start doing this like slap fighting, and they can't fight. They're terrible. The doorbell rings, and they both stop and look at the door, and then Kip's like, "Go get it." And Napoleon goes, "Okay." And then he slaps Kip right on the face and just runs to the door. Kip is like, "Ugh." Who is it?
Oh my gosh, we have Deb in all of her side ponytail glory standing on the porch.
Deb. I stan Deb. I'm a Deb stan.
She's the best character. Mm-hmm. And she asks Napoleon if he wants to look like this. And she hands him a photograph of this girl with the biggest hair I've ever seen in a photograph. And he looks at it and he goes, "This is a girl." And she goes, "Glamour shots by Deb are 75% off this week." And he goes, and he tells her, "I already get my hair cut at the Cutting Corral."
She did not offer him a haircut.
No.
She offered him a photo shoot at 75% off.
She has nothing to say to this, so she asks him instead if he'd be interested in whatever she says. And she opens up her caboodle that has all of her boondoggles.
She has 3 caboodles with her.
We cut back to Kip.
Okay, so Kip, he's inside and he's watching TV. He's like dejected on the couch because Napoleon beat him up. And he sees a commercial for Rex Kwon Do self-defense system. Rex Kwon Do is big. He's got American flag pants on. He's screaming a lot. I'm sure that Kip is like, if I take these classes, Napoleon won't ever slap me in the face again, or at least I'll be able to defend myself against Napoleon. So he grabs a paper and a pencil, and he's like, studiously, he's writing down the address. I mean, the toxic masculinity is hilarious. And so he's sitting there and he writes down the name and the address and the phone number of the place. And then he sits back and we hear Deb on the porch, and they're having a little conversation.
Yeah, and Napoleon tells her that he already made affinity of those at camp.
The boondoggle.
And so she's like, well, is anyone else here? I'm trying to earn money for college.
And Kip goes, her mom goes to college. Just like really loud out the door for no reason.
No reason.
It's so mean.
And so Deb just kind of like stares at Napoleon for a second, throws all of her boondoggles into his arm, and then like slowly runs away. And we get a shot of the house and her just like running across the yard away.
And Emily goes, me.
So yeah, Napoleon is now left with her supplies, her equipment, if you will.
Her equipment. It is equipment. So are we done with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Napoleon remembers that he has to feed Tina her casserole. So here's where we meet Tina. He goes outside and he's got the casserole, and you see that like on the one side of the house, there's an entire farm. It's got sheep, it's got goats, it's got cows. He's going the opposite direction to their other side, which they have Tina, and she's a llama.
She's a llama.
She's beautiful. She's a black llama. She looks so soft. And he's so mean to Tina for some reason. I don't know why he's so mean to Tina. Do you think he's jealous of Tina?
I mean, Grandma loves Tina.
Grandma feeds Tina better than she feeds the boys. She made a casserole for Tina, but she wanted Napoleon to make himself a quesadilla.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, he grabs a spatula and he's like, eat your freaking food, you fat lard. And he like chucks a whole spatula full of the casserole on the ground in front of Tina. He's so mean. Like, obviously Grandma wants Tina to be spoon-fed the casserole.
Yeah.
And he just will not do it. He cannot anymore. He doesn't even finish throwing the whole casserole at her. He just walks away. And he just can't. So he goes back inside. But Kip is strapping on his rollerblades, and he's wearing his movement clothing. So
movement clothing.
Well, you know when you like go to rehearsal and they're like, make sure you dress for movement.
Yes,
right?
The biggest armpit holes you've ever seen.
So obviously he needs to go somewhere. So before Napoleon can get into the house with the casserole, Kip is like, he's tying up his rollerblades, and he's like, it'd be nice if you could pull me into town. So Napoleon gets on his bike and he does pull him into town.
Awesome.
I would like to acknowledge the rides that everyone gives in this movie. This movie is a give and take of people giving rides to each other the whole time. I feel like this is what's the word? I'm not looking for the word conversation. It's a show of how broken our transportation system is in small town America.
Yeah.
There's no way for anybody to get anywhere if they don't have a car, which then marginalizes poor people even more than they already were because they can't go anywhere.
And that is how America was literally set up.
They did it on purpose.
If you go to like most other countries, housing is in the city. Like it's built into the architecture of the city. In America, you have suburbs that are so far away from the city.
Yeah.
That only rich people can live here.
Mm-hmm.
And so poor people end up living in the city on the streets.
Yes.
Because they need to have easy access to what they need.
Right. That's why we have people who are houseless, who don't have houses.
Yeah.
It's really ridiculous. So we've got Napoleon and his family live out of town. They live like
on a farm,
really far away on a farm so that they can make their money. And he can't get anywhere. And so because they can't get anywhere, they can't have a job. And because they don't have a job, they're poor and they're stuck. It's a loop. It's a cycle. And I couldn't think of the word transportation. So I wrote, this really hits hard on the small town need to go places problem in America. It really is a problem. It's a huge problem.
Oh, yeah.
And the way these guys deal with it is everybody gives rides to everybody all the time, no matter how inconvenient it is.
Mm-hmm.
It makes my stomach hurt how many rides are given in this movie and how many people can't get anywhere. Mm-hmm. They have to run places. Okay.
Literally run.
Also very funny that Napoleon goes to class with him. So he pulls him into town and we find that he's going to Rex Kwon Do, like that night.
Yes.
He's like, well, let's go. The class is tonight.
The class
and
starts
what
in
else,
an hour.
What
Time
else
to
is
go.
Napoleon going to do?
Literally.
It's not like he's going to pull him into town and then he can't go home because he'd have to just turn around and come get him again. So he goes to class with him, even though he's going there to learn how to defend himself from him. It's so good. Do you think that was part of the pulling deal? Do you think he was like, I'm not going to pull you into town? And Kip was like, you can come to class with me. And Napoleon was like, okay, fine.
Yes, absolutely.
So, yeah. And the dojo is a ripoff. It's $300 for 8 weeks. Just so everybody knows.
Just so everyone. So we cut to the dojo. We have Rex. We get a shot of the crowd, and they are all hip type people who obviously were just sitting at home on a Tuesday afternoon and saw this commercial and were like, well, I have nothing else to do tonight. And so they too got pulled into town to go to this class, this first intro class. And it looks like, and I'm not familiar with like martial arts studios, but it looks like a dance class because there's an entire one wall that's a mirror. So it looks like probably just an old dance studio that Rex maybe got like a good deal on rent. And he has decided to decorate his dojo with American flags of all sizes. They're just all over the wall. He has his flag pants on still. And he starts telling everyone who looks bored as can be about his 8-week program. And he explains that he is experienced and that they should buy his 8-week program because he had spent 2 seasons in the octagon. That doesn't mean anything to me, but it might to someone else.
We obviously didn't look it up.
Oh no, we don't do any further research.
But if anybody knows what the octagon means,
please tell us. So he's telling them all about how he's going to help them with their self-defense and blah, blah, blah. And then he asks for a volunteer, and we get a shot of just Kip sitting there, and he raises his hand. And so Rex has him come up to the front of the room.
He goes, all right, you'll do.
And he tells Kip to come at him. And so Kip pulls out his best move, which is a squat spin kick.
It's really scary.
It's very slow motion, and Rex literally just like hops over his leg, and then he smacks him on the back before he can stand up. And then Rex puts out both of his arms, and he tells Kip to grab his arm. He goes, grab my arm, other arm, my other arm. And he is going to demonstrate the break the wrist, walk away move.
Break the wrist, walk away.
And then he just slaps Kip on the wrist.
And doesn't walk away.
No, it was a wrist slap. And then he wants Kip to kick him. And so Kip does a couple kicks, and they basically just like touch shins to each other a few times. And apparently that was how you block
every time. Block every time. You block it every time.
And then he just slaps Kip again. And then he tells him to have a seat.
Oh, poor Kip. Let me remind everybody that Kip is like a foot shorter than Napoleon.
Yeah, he's like
tiny.
Probably shorter than I am.
He's very small, and his shoulders go straight down. He doesn't have any defense mechanism.
No. That kick that he did, though, at the first was very smooth.
I would have been scared.
He's been practicing that.
Honestly.
So then Rick tells everyone that, you know, he's the real deal. No one's going to mess with him. Look at his pants. Also, do you think anyone's going to mess with him when he goes home to Starla every night? And he has a picture of his wife on the wall, and she's a bodybuilder, and, like, he's so proud of her. And so then he offers the entire room that if they sign up right now, they can get his 8-week program for only $300. And Napoleon and Kip just, like, look at each other. And then they leave.
Yeah, so on the pole back home, Kip's like, he's holding onto the rope. on his rollerblades. Napoleon's riding the bike, and Kip goes, "Well, that place was a ripoff." Which I don't know. I mean, I think that was some of Kip's greatest work.
It really
You
was.
know what? He did practice that kick.
Break the wrist, walk away.
A lot. So then the next morning, Napoleon is packed up all of Deb's caboodles, and he's gonna bring them back to school. And so he's leaving the house with like this rolling thing that you bring to the airport for all your luggage. It's got your caboodles on it, and he waves at Lyle, his neighbor. He goes outside, and Lyle is across the street next to the fence, next to the road, and there's a cow next to Lyle. And he's like, "Hi, Lyle." And Lyle's like, "Oh, hey, Napoleon." And we get this shot of Lyle, and he's got a single barrel shotgun that he either doesn't know how to use very well, or it's broken because he cannot get it like cocked up. You know, you put like your shot in there and then you like chunk the gun
like
up.
Charlie Swan.
And this guy is no Charlie Swan. Lyle is no cheat. Okay, so Lyle is having trouble with his shotgun. And for some reason, Lyle has chosen to, this is a trigger warning, he's going to do something mean to this cow. He decides that in this morning at 7 o'clock, across the street from a house where a kid lives and gets picked up from school every day by the school bus. And remember, Napoleon is the only kid on this bus older than 8. This is when he's going to shoot his cow in the face. This is the very definition of oblivious. This is the worst thing I've seen in a movie. We don't see the shooting of the cow because luckily, all the kids have to watch it. The bus rides up, shields Napoleon from seeing the shoot. Napoleon goes to step on the bus. We get a shot of the inside of the bus, and all the kids are like, "Oh, look, a cow." And then
we hear the gunshot.
And then Lyle shoots the cow in the face, and all the kids are just a scream.
The loudest scream.
The most traumatized scream of their lives. Scream. That's what just happened in this scene, you guys.
Oh my gosh. So the school bus driver just drops everyone off at school. No big deal.
There's no counseling. No intervention. We just saw the cow get shot in the head in front of us.
Because next thing we know, Napoleon is in his English class, which I decided it was his English class based on the posters on the wall, which one of them is a kitten. And that just seems like a very English teacher kind of poster to have. And they are having their English class Happy Hands Club class performance, in which there are 6 members, and Napoleon appears to be the only male in the club. And so they're doing their performance to the song "The Rose," and they use, I'll tell you, incorrect American Sign Language because I, in 6th grade, learned the actual sign language to this song. The entire class is watching and quietly judging them.
I wonder if, so I thought about this last night after we watched it. Was it like part of the Happy Hands Club, like club mission to go around to every class one day and show their performance?
I would assume
so
that
that's
is
what's happening here.
Yes.
So this was just their rotation. This was like the first one of the day.
Probably the first period.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Oh, are we done?
Yes. I have to move the cat.
I cannot. I will get attacked. Oh,
Turn this way.
Also, hold on a sec. I got a text.
Okay.
And it's from Mark. We might have to take a break in about 10 minutes. Is that okay? Stuff is happening. It's a family emergency. So, okay. I'll do the next scene. All right. So after this performance with the Happy Hands Club, which I feel like Napoleon was very proud of, he definitely emoted the most. He had the most expressive
Happy hands.
happy hands of everybody. We are in gym class outside. Pedro and Napoleon are sitting in the bleachers having their determine the relationship talk. Napoleon is like, so like basically we're like friends now, right? And Pedro's like, yeah, I guess. And he's like, so does that mean you have my back? Which is what he learned at the Rex dojo, because Rex was like, you got to find your person who's got your back all the time.
No more flying solo.
And Napoleon's like, Pedro's my person. And Pedro's like, yeah, I got your back. Like, no problem. So there he's like, who are you going to ask to the dance? And Pedro's like, I think I'm going to ask that girl over there. And he points at Regina George of Idaho. In this movie, her name is Summer. And he's like, I think I'm going to ask that girl. And he's like, what the heck? How? When are you going to ask her? And he's like, I don't know. I think I'm going to do it after school. And when Napoleon asks how the heck he's going to do it, Pedro says he will build her a cake or something. Which, why would somebody would build me a cake? So Napoleon starts bragging about his old girlfriend from Oklahoma. But it's just the picture of the girl that he stole from Deb's equipment box. She shows him and says, do you want to look like this? Mm-hmm. It's not anybody. It's like Deb's cousin or something. She's got the hair and she's backlit beautifully, but it's definitely nobody who has ever known Napoleon. And Pedro thinks she's hot.
She's hot. Yeah. So they go to school lunch, and Napoleon asks Pedro about his mustache, specifically how long it took to grow. And Pedro goes, I don't know, a couple days, I guess.
Gross. I don't like it.
Napoleon is very jealous, though, and so he's looking around, and he notices that Pedro hasn't eaten his tots yet. And Pedro has lined up his tots in the most cute little pyramid in their little spot on his lunch tray. And so Napoleon's like, are you going to eat your tots? And Pedro's like, no. And Napoleon's like, can I have them? And he's like, yeah, sure, I guess. And so Napoleon grabs the entire pyramid of tater tots and puts them in his side thigh outer zip-up pocket.
I should have given a trigger warning for the tots, too.
Which are attached to his snakeskin printed sweat-like pants. It's a look.
He chose those pants because Rex Kwon Do was like, nobody's gonna mess with me in these pants. And Napoleon was like, I think I have some pants that are similar to that.
I'll wear my stretchiest, baggiest pants to school. No problemo.
They're so weird.
And so they're sitting there, and Napoleon sees Deb sitting across the cafeteria by herself. And he tells Pedro about how Deb came over to his house and just left a bunch of crap on his porch. And Pedro looks over, and he's like, yeah, she's pretty good looking. And then Napoleon...
She is, though. She's the cutest girl in the movie.
She is.
Even, like, we've got Haley Duff in there, and this girl that plays Deb is cuter.
So Napoleon's like, do you dare me to go talk to her? And Pedro's like, yeah. And so he goes over, and he sits across from Deb, who's just sitting there with her milk and her sandwich. And he tells her, are you drinking 1% because you think you're fat? Because you're not. You could drink whole milk if you wanted to. And then he tells her that he has all of her equipment in his locker, and she should probably come and get it out because he can't fit his nunchucks in there anymore.
Oh, Napoleon. The way he goes, I can't even fit my nunchucks in there anymore.
His eyes are closed.
And his eyes are always closed. And he turns to the side. Also, I want to reenact Deb's reaction when Napoleon comes walking towards him. She's like just casually, very comfortably eating like it doesn't look like a PB&J. It looks like it's got Nutella in it. It's like a dark color, something inside of a sandwich. Maybe it's Vegemite. I don't know. But she's like eating the sandwich, and she's got like a big piece of bread on her lip. But she's like comfortable, and she's all by herself. And this big boy comes walking toward her, who she was super embarrassed at his house yesterday. And she just literally goes like this. That's for everybody watching, but her whole body shrinks.
He just tenses up.
And she stays that way the whole time he's talking to her. And she keeps eating her sandwich and getting more and more food on her face the whole time. Oh, poor Deb. I just want to rescue her in that moment. It's so uncomfortable. So after he's like, you better come get your equipment out of my locker, we next see them at his locker. We see Deb and Napoleon at the locker, so she can get her equipment. And he asks her if he can have one of her keychains, and she just hands him one. And then she runs away with her equipment. And then he like looks around, and he's like, this pocket's already full of tots. So he just sticks it in his waistband, which his shirt is tucked into his sweat. So, but it's convenient because then he has a hook on it, but there's nowhere to hook it. So he just sticks it in his waistband as a decoration of his pants. And then he runs the other direction, very Edward Cullen-ish. But the difference is, I bet Edward Cullen would have paid her for that boondoggle. She's trying to save money for college, and nobody ever gives her a cent for these boondoggles. It bothers me so much.
Yeah. So then we catch up with what Grandma's been up to, and we get a shot of her riding her four-wheeler at the dunes. She's sand wheeling.
Yeah.
Really. We've got a car full of people who are cheering her on. And she goes over this big hill, and she definitely gets 3 feet of air.
She's got skills.
But she definitely falls off of the four-wheeler.
Oh, she's separated from that four-wheeler the second it hits the top of that hill.
Yep.
It's 2 different bodies going different directions. It's so disturbing. Okay, I think I need to take a break because I need to go upstairs and take care of a thing that's happening. I'm really sorry to cut the... We'll come back to this probably later tonight.
Yep, part 2 later.
Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.